I'm Stuart Winter, the platform architect for Slackware ARM, and we've got Brent Earl. Hi, Brent.
Hi.
What's happened is I've been working, as I've been developing the port, I was busy building some script and I wanted to test with the eMMC, which is an additional component that you can purchase when you buy a ROC Pro 64. And I was looking to figure out what device number the onboard flash, which is baked into the board, as you'll see in a minute. I was trying to figure out if that device number would change in Linux when I added the eMMC. Unfortunately, all I did was plug in the eMMC module to the board, and the board no longer boots. There's nothing on the eMMC. It was completely blank. It's now preventing the machine from booting. Now, Brent has had this problem before, so he's going to walk me through how to bypass the SPI flash so that when we boot the board, it will boot from the SD card. And in this case, it will flash a tried and tested version of U-boot onto the device so that I can boot it once again. The first thing that I'm going to do that you see is I'm going to write that tried and tested U-boot onto the SD card, which I'm going to boot on the ROC Pro 64. So you see on the screen here, there's a few instructions. You'll find these on the FTP site as well. The first thing we need to do is to make sure that I'm writing the U-boot to the correct device. Otherwise, I'm going to destroy, in this case, Dastardly, which is another one of the ROC Pro 64s. I'll wipe something by accident instead and take the machine down. So we don't want to do that. Now, I do know that I've just plugged in a USB SD card adapter. I have the SD card that I'm going to insert into the currently broken ROC Pro 64. I've got that in a USB adapter that's plugged into Dastardly's USB bus, and I know that it happens to be SDB1. I also know that because SDB1, or SDB I should say, is well, here it says it's 57 gigabytes, and it's actually a 64 gigabytes, at least it's marketed as one, 64 gigabytes SD card. And I also know that SDA here that you see is a larger 2.5-inch eSATA drive that's plugged into it. So I'm absolutely confident that this is the correct SD card. So what I'm going to do is look at the notes in here, and I'm going to do pretty much follow what's there. So xz cat, which is the same as xz-dc, uboot, flash, and then I'm going to pipe it into dd, of equals /dev sdb. Note that it's the entire device, it's not the partition number, so it's sdb. And then of, oh, I don't need to do that because I'm catting it into the standard output. I just need bs equals 1m. There we go. Done. Okay, and sync that as well. So what I'm going to do now is just disconnect that from Dastardly. So I've now written the recovery U-boot onto an SD card. Okay, Brent, so do you want to talk through, you've already told me before we started the call about which pins we need to do. We basically need to jumper 2 pins together. So I've got a single cable here that I can place onto any jumper pins. I've currently got it onto pin 20, plugged into pin 21.
Yeah, it's pin 21, which is SPI RX. So when you plug it in, you need to make sure it's off, obviously. And then you plug the other end of the cable into a ground. Can be any of the grounds, but I like to choose 39. The easiest one to find.
Yeah. Okay, so we've got it plugged into pin, as you said, we have it plugged into pin 21 already, which is the SPI pin, and then we'll pick one of the grounds, and as you said, pin 39, because it's simply the easiest to find on the board, because it happens to be this one right here. And very importantly, just to reiterate, this is completely switched off. This cable that you see here, this is the serial to USB adapter. But it is not connected to anything, so it's completely dead. I'll plug it in a moment. And everything is, because if you don't, there'll be some residual current on the board from the USB bus. So you must have it all disconnected and leave it disconnected for a few seconds or so. It also helps to put it on an anti-static sheet. This is just an anti-static bag from a hard disk or something. So I'm going to jumper these two together like that with the board off. And then what do? Do we power it on?
And the trick is like once it starts turning on, U-boot will boot off the SD card or whatever other media you have attached with U-boot on it. So then you'll just want to make sure that right when you get a U-boot shell, then you can disconnect the ground. You don't disconnect the other one, just the ground. And you'll have access to SPI flash again.
Okay, so I just need to insert the USB card and then boot and then power it on.
Yeah.
And then it should boot off the USB card and I can just interrupt U-boot and then disconnect the...
Yeah, as long as you have a shell, don't let it boot. Just let it go to the U-boot shell.
Okay.
And then you can disconnect the ground. That's what I do, and it works pretty good. And then I just use the U-boot commands to erase it.
Okay. But I won't need to. I'm pretty certain I don't need to interrupt the shell because this is the USB recovery card, so it should just boot anyway. So I would need to. Oh, hang on. Let me think. Oh, no. Let's try it out. Right. So we've got it. So I'm going to put the. Right.
Because
so
if
now
it's
I'm
jumped, you won't be able to write the SPI. You have to pull it out before it starts to write.
Gotcha. Okay. That does make it more complicated then. Okay. That's
kind of tricky.
Let's see if we can do it. So I'm going to plug in the recovery USB card in there. So now that is there. So yeah. So what I'm going to do now is plug the USB to serial adapter back into this laptop I'm using. Okay. So it's showing me that I've just connected the USB to serial adapter, and it's appearing on TTY USB 2. So I'm going to, I think I've already got one open actually. No, I don't. So that's fine. So we're going to power this up. That's all it does.
Is that the version of the U-boot you had?
I don't know what that is. That's all it does when you power it on.
That's the burned-in firmware, probably.
Yeah, but that's all it's doing. It's not booting U-boot, is it?
I haven't seen it do that yet.
Yeah, this is what it did last time I told you about it, and it just works again after all those months have been switched off.
Yeah.
If I try and reset it, it just does
and
that.
Is the SPI jumped right now?
Yeah.
Oh, you may have bricked it.
Well, I did this last time and I didn't do anything else. Pin 21, it's definitely the right one.
Yeah. Is that SD card in the ARC Pro?
Yeah. Yeah.
Try booting it with just like, a known working SD card with Slackware or something while it's jumped and see what happens.
The Slackware ones don't have. I took the U-boot off the Slackware.
Oh.
I've taken it from there because I didn't need it anymore. But on the other hand, the last time it booted was when I had it on there and I was saying, oh, look, it looks like my U-boot's booting. Let me think. Hang on a minute. So if I'll tell you what I can do. I know what I can do. I will put the U-boot back again. So let's do that. Okay. So if I've got a different SD card now.
Oh.
So I'm just going to put the latest one that I built this morning, and then I'll DD U-boot back onto it because it's the same. It's no different to just redoing the image itself, and then we'll see. Because that is what happened before, but I don't know. All I wanted to do was just have a look and see what the device name was.
If you're writing it to MTD or I think in U-boot it's called SDHC. I don't know. I forget what it's called in U-boot, but in Linux it's MTD0. So actually I haven't even tried to do that since I've been booting Slackware because it just works. I haven't had any problems.
No, I haven't either. This is the first time I've had it since this board broke originally. It's the first time I've had any problems with it. And even this board itself has been rebooting over and over. I've been using it to test the installer. So it's just whatever has gone on with the eMMC has screwed something up.
Is the eMMC still attached?
No, no, I'm not even going to reattach that. That was the one that got toasted early on when I started doing the ports, because I was using eMMC just to see, how it would be to build on that, and I completely burnt the thing out. I mean, you can still see it; it still appears as a device, but you try and write anything on there, and it's not going to last very long, or it's going to be corrupt. But
Yeah,
it was enough that it appears to allow me to see what device it would occupy on the in slash dev. I'm cautious now. Although funny, when I plug it onto the eMMC adapter and put it into the USB bus of another machine, it works fine. And you can still see it and everything. Again, it's still toasted. It's not. It's pretty fried, but it does appear.
can't write anything to it. You just see it pop up.
You can write to it. It's just that it's corrupt. Data just gets corrupt on there, so they're really of no use to install an operating system on.
Yeah.
Right, I've already got a script that does that. Forgot about that. Private do reboot. Dev lock. There. Okay, so on that SD card should now. This is one of the things about these SD cards. I was looking to find some little colors, little stickers, so I could figure out which was which. Well, let's try this one anyway. It's not like it's going to cause any damage.
I suppose it could just be completely fried, but I mean.
No, yeah, you can see that's not booting.
Is it at least one of your 2 GB ones instead of the 4 GB?
No, I only have 4 GB versions.
Oh, okay.
Ah, there we go.
Yeah.
Oh, hang on. Am I supposed to disconnect something?
Wait until U-boot starts into the shell.
It hasn't gone into the shell.
No.
Let's try it again. Let's just reboot it, see what happens.
Yeah, I reset it.
I've disconnected the pin as well. Oh, okay, that's interesting. So, then I'm going to have to disconnect that. Oh, that's irritating. But anyway.
Yeah, you have to keep powering it off when you reconnect it ground.
I thought this would take a moment.
Yeah.
When is it ever that straightforward? Right, TTYSB2. Let's try that again. Let's try it again. Okay, well that's definitely the U-boot that I built, although it's not booting anything.
I don't know what's going on. You have the ground attached?
Yeah, I do. I haven't disconnected it
See what
yet.
happens when you disconnect it while that's going on. It shouldn't hurt anything, but
No, I've just disconnected it. It doesn't make any difference yet.
it usually what happens is it'll go in and it'll give you like 3 seconds to hit a key, and then you can drop to the U-boot shell.
Yeah.
And then disconnect the flash or the SPI, and then you can type your commands and save it or erase it or whatever.
So what I'm going to do here, this is a Debian nightly that I just downloaded just to see, because their stuff usually works. I think that's what you do. I think it's that order. Do it anyway.
Yeah, that's how you do it with that.
The flash is, the SPI isn't bypassed. Let's try see what happens. Awesome.
Yeah, just see if it boots somehow, but if you bypass the SPI flash, it should boot from the SD.
Yeah, so it obviously bypasses that, but it's just not booting a. Okay, so you can see that's Debian's one.
Yeah.
And it's not doing anything there either.
I don't know what's wrong with it. I haven't seen that yet. Usually it's pretty quick fixing it. Yeah, I think it's broken. You sure you have it connected to 21? Maybe it's connected to the wrong one.
No, it's definitely on 21. I mean, you can see it boots, it gets further. It does actually boot off the SD card, but it's not getting further than loading U-boot. I'm just trying to think. There's sometimes, well, there's nothing plugged into it that's, I can try resetting it a couple of times.
Drop it in a bucket of water and then maybe it'll work.
Yeah, that'll do it. I thought you needed to wait a certain amount of time or something, don't you?
For the jumping part?
Hmm.
I just know from using, I think it's a UFan, his image, it usually will still boot off of like SDs even though the SPI's jumped.
Oh, hang on. It says on here it's pins 23, and 20 and 25, which is, well, 25 is a ground, not 21. Although,
It could be 23. I just know it's either TX or RX.
oh, okay. Well,
Yeah.
let's try 23. Well, they clearly, I mean, you can see it does something better than it did before, but it's still not right there. Let's try.
Still doing something.
Hang on,
Yeah.
let's try 23 then. We can
Yeah.
start. If it doesn't work, we can start it again now. Hang on, let me
I
just
think
go back.
I sent you an email with it, but I couldn't find it.
Oh, yeah, you did, don't. So
I sent you lots of emails.
21, 2. Right, 39 is a ground. Well, that's a ground, so we don't do anything about
Yeah,
that.
39 is definitely right.
Yeah, exactly right. So let's give that a go. Maybe it'll work now. Let's see.
It's not completely bricked because then this would be a pointless video.
Oh, it has no difference. Look, it's doing the same thing with the pin
Yeah.
on a different pin. Let's try with the other. The recovery thing didn't boot either, did it? And that didn't even seem to get as far as
No.
mine or
You
Debian's.
could try taking out the jump on the ground and try just seeing what happens with the recovery. Did we try that already?
Yeah, that was the first thing I tried. It just doesn't boot it. I'll try pin 25 instead of ground. I don't know
Yeah.
why it would make any difference, but who knows?
No, maybe the ground and you had there's something wrong with it too. Yeah. Who
Well,
knows?
yeah, you might be right actually, because it did do some odd things, this board. Oh God, I've got so many SD cards. I'm not sure which to switch now.
I mean, they make a lot of boards, so it's just bound to be one with something wrong with it. It's just statistically.
Okay, so that's Debian's boot. You can see it's the same, regardless of which pin it is connected to.
If the onboard SPI flash is jumped, that means what's the boot order, the default boot order for Debian's U-boot? Because a lot of them have different orders.
Well, I mean, it's not, the thing is, it's not displaying anything, right? There should be a whole bunch of output here.
Yeah.
So it's not, if it was displaying something, at least I'd know it was booting and I'd just do something different. But
So the way I understand it is TPL is like the first part of the stage, and then comes SPL, and it's not loading SPL. So I don't know what's wrong with it. Usually gets past that even when the flash is messed up. It loads it in the internal memory, so not the regular RAM, but the part that's part of the chip. And then it loads it into RAM after it gets past SPL. If it can't get past there, then I don't know what's wrong with it.
yeah, so SPI flash, then eMMC.
Because there's a ROM code, and then there's U-boot SPL, and then there's actually U-boot before the kernel. It's like a big chain.
So it's pin 23 and 25.
23 and 25?
Yeah, according to this AU fan. I'm not sure what that is. Anyway, the guy that made the boot rescue image. So it's 23 and 25, which is what I already have connected in there. And then turn on the device and release the grounding of the SPI clock 2 to 3 seconds after it was turned on. Okay, but it says you won't be able to. Okay, fine. And then bizarre. But this is pretty much what happened before.
And the boot ROM's not messed up because it's getting to TPL, and TPL is loading, but it's not getting to the next part. So I don't know. Everything I searched on here real quick, it doesn't say anything about that. TPL is just supposed to load SPL, and SPL is supposed to load everything else. What happens if you plug in? Do you have a working eMMC?
No, but that's what I was just wondering, if I should plug it in, because maybe something weird has got set somewhere, and there's some state stored somewhere in this board, and the reason why it worked after so many months is because it ran out. It's quite possible, right? I mean,
I don't know.
I can't.
Had you turned it on at all since then?
No, I was ready to go and flash it with the SPI when I told you before, and I turned it on and it just worked. I did nothing. I've been in the box for months since I started working on the port after I broke it like on the first day. There's got to be, yeah, there must be something. I wonder if actually, how do you disable eMMC? Because it says you can jumper that out as well. There's an unlabeled 2-pin jumper 16 between the eMMC socket 14 and the SPI chip 17. It is designated as SW4 and this open no jumper is used for.
Because I'm looking at the pinout right now.
It says it's 2-pin jumper for 16. So between where's this eMMC socket picture? Yeah, so it should be this one here.
Oh, those.
I guess because it says it's between the eMMC socket and which is that, and then the SPI chip. I don't know where that is. I need to look at the schematic diagram.
Where those 2 rows of pinouts are, that's for the wireless next to me. See, yeah. That's for the Wi-Fi card. I have mine plugged into that, and it works.
The schematic diagram. Oh, okay. It's a PDF of it. Oh, I see. It's labeled as SW4. Ah, yeah, of course. It's literally a 2-pin jumper. It's this one right here. Look.
That's what I was starting to wonder.
Yeah, it's that because it says SPI flash quite clearly on the board. It's right here. So I just need to grab myself a jumper. Hold on. Find a regular jumper. So I'll just rip one of these cables in half again. All right. Let's turn it off.
Strange, because they said you could do that, but there's also the GPIO pins, and I was thinking maybe it was safer to use the GPIOs, because if those break, it's not like going to ruin the board.
Oh no, well this is just a pin. I mean, it's just putting a jumper on a pin. So right, if it breaks, then it really needs to be quality controlled a bit better. Yeah. Right. Well, you never know, right? So let's see.
Yeah, I think that the pins you're using now is if it's really broken.
Well, no, this is just to bypass eMMC. So I'm just curious if if something's gone screwed up. Okay, so, well, it's not done anything different. That's not so bad. But let me was it pin 20? Which pin was it again? SPI. If you mess up jumping pins 23 and 25, you have to remove the jumper 2 seconds after having started while that white light turns on. Otherwise, SPI will be missing and you won't be able to flash it. Yeah, sure. Okay. Well, the pin didn't. The LED didn't go white anyway. So.
Yeah. You're jumping the eMMC and the SPI.
Yeah. Well,
yeah, maybe there's something wrong with the connector on the board for the eMMC, so that's why it's having problems.
Could be. Yeah. Okay, well that's my SD card. So that's with everything jumpered, right? And there's no white LED on it either. So it's just not booting further than that. That's silly. What happens if I just take an SD card out of it then? What happens then? Does it just
put a wire on
there's nowhere to boot now. There's nothing to boot from.
Yeah.
Yeah, that clearly doesn't work. So.
The ROM should still load though without error. I mean, like it was.
Yeah, I don't know which SD card this is. I think it's the recovery one. Might try that again. I really need this board working because that's how I'm testing the installer. The other Muttley's busy building the world, and the Dastardly's building the installers. And without this, I can't test it without constantly shutting it down, which is just not conducive to being fast. No. Let's try this again. I'll redo it because that's different. Normally right, let's do it again.
Like doing surgery, there's so many things plugged into it.
Oh, there we go. Well, that's interesting. So it's not this SD card that's in there is supposed to be the recovery, but you can see it's not even booting the U-boot from it.
Do you have the SPI flash jump?
Yeah.
That's weird.
I'm sure it's going to be Okay, so it doesn't seem to boot that.
Yeah. It should be booting from the SD at this point if everything's jumped. Have you tried booting? Well, there we go.
Yeah, that's the Slackware one though. So it's not boot for whatever reason. It's not booting the Arian one or thing at all. So it boots mine and Debian's. As far as this, it doesn't get any further.
Yeah, I don't know enough about the inner workings of U-boot to tell you why, other than what I've experienced.
I'm tempted to plug the MMC back onto it actually, just because it's so odd of a thing to do that it might actually fix it. Because
Well, maybe there's something shorted on the board. You never know.
no, exactly. Although it's disabled right now, but well, once to get this working, I'm never plugging this thing into it again. I can tell you.
Yeah, I had the MMC turned off on the Pinebrook because of that. There's a lot of problems with that thing.
I can't even get the damn thing to plug in now. Okay, now it's seated. Right, let's try it again. So I've got the MMC plugged back into it now. Although I haven't disabled the SPI flash. I should probably do that actually. Which pin was it again? 21?
21, yeah.
Right. So, okay. There's still, yeah, it doesn't make any difference. So, God knows.
There must be something wrong with the boot ROM then on the board. That's probably why it's just flashing the version and that's it.
Yeah, so there's Debian's one.
And
that's that one, as far as that one gets. The recovery one, which just doesn't boot at all.
hate to say it, but do they have like a support line?
That's the Slackware one. No.
Yeah, I didn't think so, but
No, I did email them before and they just said to bypass the SPI. I'm like, okay, so I have now and it still doesn't boot.
yeah, I literally was in the middle of writing to SPI Flash and the power strip that it was plugged into went out in the middle of writing. So I jumpered it and then I pulled the thing out the ground and wrote to it and it was fine. And I can't imagine there being more of a worse situation that would make it worse for SPI Flash.
Yeah. But at least you can bypass it. It just doesn't work. So, okay. Now I think it's screwed.
Yeah, it's not loading even the SD card, so
No, I mean, it's finding U-boot off it, but it's not. I'll just take this and paste it to them and say, look, you can clearly see I'm doing it and it doesn't work.
yeah, this is what happens.
Yeah, welcome to
Welcome to Rough Blues.
doing all this stuff. Damn thing.
There's probably something, they probably have some way to fix it. I wouldn't be surprised. I don't know how far you would go to fix that though.
Well, there's nothing like it. Yeah, no, they wouldn't. I don't think they would even bother. It's not worth it. Let's get a new one.
They might just send you a new one.
Well, that's what I hope so, because this is screwed, isn't it? There's nothing I can do with this.
Yeah. It just sucks because you have your workflow set up and now you only have 2 boards.
Yeah, and no, it's not even. Oh, it's not working because I've disconnected the cable. I wonder. Do you know what I reckon it is? I wonder whether it's something. If I take this away, if I disconnect the USB adapter and I just try it without it and see if it boots on its own. Because yeah, there's something really screwed up with these devices. I remember now. Anything plugged into it just confuses it. So if I disconnect all of this stuff, if I disconnect all these extra jumpers and stuff, and if I just turn it on, does it do anything?
Right, with just the erase.
Ah, yeah, it's booting now.
Is
I
it
can't
because
see
the
it.
USB serial was plugged in?
Yep. And now both LED lights on, the yellow and the red, are solid. And I put what I think is the recovery. Huh? It's back. Look,
Slackware, so it's working.
it's back.
Cool.
I don't understand what is going
Including
on.
the installer.
So all I did was I let it keep the lights on for a while. Then I plugged the USB cable into the adapter back into the laptop USB port, and there you go. This is what's happening. Okay, so it's not screwed. It's just something bad has happened. Let's see if it boots the installer. There we go. Yeah, 2.6 megabytes a second. That's very, very slow. But at least it looks like it's working now. We'll see if it starts the kernel. Cool. And there's the installer. Oh yeah, I've got to sort all this mess out. USB, that should be there actually. I think something's gone wrong with this build.
I just know every time I try to put a new kernel on to the boot partition, it can never find the root partition. So I have to mount in and just hit exit into the RAM disk boots. So I don't know what's going on, but
I don't know, I don't have that problem. I mean, I haven't tested this one because I only built it this morning. I don't actually intend to test it until there's a newer kernel. Well, actually, no, it doesn't matter. Right, so is there any modules? Oh yeah, okay, cool. So this board looks like it works actually. I need to sort out all that mess in the installer with ModPro, but I'll get around to that. It's not that important. What happens if I reboot it? Does it boot? What happens? Yeah, it does. Okay,
yeah.
so I know to keep the eMMC well away from this board. So that is never going in that board ever again.
Is it still jumped?
No, there's no jumpers at all anymore. It's back to how it was.
Oh my god.
So hang on. So basically, the solution to this was just to disconnect the USB cable and then turn it on and then plug it back in.
Oh my god.
But the good thing is at least when someone else inevitably has this exact problem, I'll be like, okay, just unplug everything, disconnect pull the USB cable adapter out, and just turn it on. Leave it for about 10 seconds, and then plug it in, and it might just work.
Yeah.
This is clearly a bit of a dodgy board. There's something bad happened to it, but it's working now, as you can see. So we haven't written anything new to the SPI flash. We've just recovered a board that was otherwise broken by simply turning it on without the serial to USB adapter plugged in, and then reconnecting it about 10 seconds later and finding that it just works fine and boots off of the Slackware SD card. So awesome. So what should happen though, what I want to tell you what I'm going to do. Let's boot this up, but it needs network. I need to actually physically move this now from, because this just goes to show everything doesn't work how people think that it does. Like it doesn't just appear magically and everything's amazing. It's just a lot of faffing around.
My install is working really well. I haven't had any problems with libraries or anything.
No, the operating system at the moment is stable. I mean, it just works. Okay, so let me just see. There we go. I've just connected the USB disk to it back to the device. What I want to do though is I want to re-flash the new Slackware AArch64 SD card does not have U-boot on it at the moment because I want to, as I said, I want to put that onto SPI instead. So I'm not going to supply it. On the other hand, now I'm just thinking maybe I should, but then the problem is with that is that it's going to confuse the boot process. So, you know, for example, if it's been useful here because I've been able to boot directly off the SD card by putting U-boot back again onto the SD card. But I want to supply them without U-boot because there's no point, because the U-boot loader from Arufan or Camille, his one boots mine without mine having U-boot on it, because it just looks in the partition table and finds the what it's looking for, the kernel and the inrd, and boots it. Well, actually, finds X Linux is actually what happens. But in this case, I've just made it boot my U-boot. So what I want to find out is whether his U-boot is still able to boot mine without mine having U-boot on it. So what I'm going to do is go back. Let's go back here. So I'm going to mount. That'll do. Is that even going to work? Yeah, it does have network, so it might do. Or does it have an IP? I think it just got an IP. I just managed to get in time. Maybe I didn't. Ah, no, I didn't. So we've been talking for over an hour now.
Yeah.
And I thought it would take like 10 minutes.
No, I was like, yes, quick.
Okay.
Not that I have anything going on for a while.
Okay. Right, so which is the flash? sorry, which is the SD card? It must be MMC Block 1. That would be the one. Oh, okay. I must have picked an 8GB SD card this time rather than a 64. The majority of the ones I have are 64. Oh, yeah. Okay, so this is obviously an 8 one, 7.4 gigs. I'm going to put the what's going to be the standard image. MMC Block 1. So I'm just going to put that back onto the SD card that's in the Pro64 now, and that doesn't have U-boot on it. So then I want to see if we can reboot still from Camille's version of U-boot, because that's what I'm currently doing until I get the SPI working for myself.
That'd be great if you could find syslinux and then we'll just boot.
That's what it does. I mean, that's what I'm quite happy with. I actually don't mind using his bootloader, but the thing is, it's really slow to load the init ID, which is massive. It's like 200 megs or something, and that's just unacceptable. It's too slow. Yeah. Although it works, but it slows the boot process down significantly. And like you said, I'd rather be able to control that aspect of it. I don't like erasing the U-boot off the SPI flash, but to be honest, it's not really that much of a concern so much anymore. Because you can always just reflash it anyway. I mean, you've just watched me plug the cables in and out, and the board's still working, right? So it's not. Yeah. I'm more at ease.
Did you have the board still on while you were plugging and unplugging everything?
Most of the time I disconnected it. Actually, I lost patience at the very end and just did it anyway, and it was fine. I wouldn't recommend doing that for anyone, but I just did it. I just did it anyway. It's okay. I need to see how to build a version of U-boot 4 that's destined for the SPI flash to see if it's different from the TPL version that you saw booting.
Yeah.
Which I think it's pretty easy to do. I just haven't done it yet. But there's plenty of scripts out there that do that already. So I'll have a look at those for inspiration. And then write some code that runs in the installer that will offer to update the version of U-boot in SPI flash. But I will start from using Camille's version, which is the recovery one, which works fine. It has lots of debug output on it, but it does actually work. But I'll start with that as the base in the installation documents. I'll start with that. If people's, when they write the SD card, the Slackware AArch64 SD card, when they write that, if it doesn't boot, then the next step is use Camille's version. It'll put you into a steady state with a steady version. It works, so I don't have to worry about writing one. Use his one, and then once you boot into the Slackware installer, it will offer you to replace that with the Slackware AArch64 version. If it works, the users don't have to do that if they don't want to do that.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see what happens. So this is the one without U-boot on. Let's just see what happens when I reboot it. If we get lots of, yeah, there we go, it works.
It just finds it and boots.
Yep. Yeah, works. So you shouldn't see.
Actually, a little bit faster loading too at the beginning.
Yeah, and this isn't. You see, this is not loading my U-boot because it's not there anymore. So you don't see the RC5 version of U-boot, which is what I had on the SD card previously when I DD'd it manually. So yeah, it works. Well,
it found everything. It doesn't see anything about USB
though. No. Oh, that's a thought. I was wondering whether Camille's version actually works with the pre-boot USB. I just don't have anything I don't have any USB peripherals plugged into it at the moment. To do with using the USB keyboard immediately to access the console, because in the version I compile, it doesn't work because it's just a bug in U-boot. But his is a very old version of U-boot, so it might just work. I don't know when they broke that support. But at the moment, Bladswede should boot back into the Slackware AArch64 OS, I think, unless I broke it. I can't remember. I can't remember what state I was using. All these machines, apart from Muttley, are just in a completely random state now, because I've just also started upgrading GCC to the latest version in the Slackware beta. So I need to wait until that's done, really, and then I'm going to reinstall both Dastardly and Bladswede, which is this one. But you can also see this is also very slow to load. And when I had my own version of U-boot running, it's much faster. So I guess there's some setting, or
Well,
maybe I
he
don't.
probably enables a lot of the different features that are available, so that's
Well,
why.
it's just the speed of that's accessing the USB bus. It's just very slow. I don't know why, but and also I don't know. Oh, Tegra, it's not present. Okay, yeah, I need to sort that out. Oh, why is it loading the? That's not what I want. Hang on. Stop. Yeah, I don't want any of that. Ah, it's supposed to boot the OS. I thought I'd pressed. Oh, right, I pressed one. That's the entire. I forgot because it's got the. Oh, it's never going to work because I've. Okay, yeah, it doesn't matter. It's never going to work because the it's a fresh /boot for Slackware AArch64 is going to be on the SD card. That's going to be the installation path and the configuration layout. And because I've just written a new, default version of the of essentially what is /boot to here. It's not going to have any of the bootloader config. So, for example, if I do, was it which one was it? MMC block 1. Yeah. So if I do, oops, / what did I just call the directory? What did I call it? Oh, well, I'll tell you what, let's just do /boot. There we go. Oh, never seen that one before. Q, oh, there we go, /Q. I should have known, that's my favorite directory name. Ooh.
Why doesn't have the file system in it?
It should do. Yeah, it does. Oh, right, because I'm trying to mount the actual device. So it's the whole device rather than the partition. Yeah, so there we go. And then, yeah, so this is the bootloader config for Xlib, which is, yeah, and then it's missing. Well, actually, I could just fix this, couldn't I? So I could just delete the installer and get the machine rebooting. That is the installer, isn't it? Yeah. And then root dev, so that's. I think it's SDA2, and then that's going to be X4. Oh, I'm going to do a podcast soon as well where we talk through this, and then I'll explain what this is here, Sluck PBS. Because that's going to help with the community being able to support other devices quite easily.
Like loading modules, kernel modules.
Yeah, it's gonna give you access to the init RD. It's going to open up a shell at 3 different points in the boot process, which makes it easier to develop, really. Right, I've done that. I think I'm just going to check that I've actually done that right, though. Ooh. SDA2. Yeah, that'd be the one. Right, so sync. Yeah, should be the one. Oh, hang on. I think I did the wrong default installer. Yeah, there we go. Let's change that. OS sync. Sync. Boom. It should boot the OS this time.
Yeah.
Yeah, there we go. Well, at least it's in the menu properly this time. I tell you, I'm really enjoying this using X Linux with, which is U-boot sysboot feature.
Yeah, I feel like it'd be good for just regular Slackware too. A lot easier than like.
Well, that's the plan. Actually, the plan. Well, maybe I'm not sure actually about that. It's just more work. Well, I might do that. Well, yeah. Once it's working. Well, yeah. I keep doing that. I'm kind of, the reason is because the trim slice, I can't get that to boot. I can't get a new version. I can compile one for it, but I can't get it to boot and find the network and some other stuff. So it's basically, for all intents and purposes, useless. And I spent hours and hours figuring out how to get it to build for trim slice because it's so old and no one does anything with it anymore, which is probably also why the U-boot doesn't work on it, the most recent U-boots. And I kind of, it's probably, I know that Eric, Alien Bob, has a trim slice. I know that. But he's the only one in the world that I know that might even entertain the idea of putting Slackware on it, apart from me. So should I just not use it anymore? I think, and then I would be able to.
What typically runs on it though?
Nothing. When it sits in the cupboard. Nothing runs on it. It was just the one that the trim slice was the one that I used to build the hard float port on, because it was one of the spare machines that I had at the time, so I used it. Oh, there we go. The OS is booting now. Yeah. Oh, you know what? All these here. This it needs to be added into the kernel config. That's why it's missing. Because remember, this is basically a big fat init.rd, so these should be in there. So JDB and all these others need to go into the kernel config.
Yeah.
In fact, you can do that if you like, because that's
what I'm doing right now actually, but I'm trying it out on the Pinebook first.
Oh, okay. Well, can I give you? I changed your config maybe by one line. I think I'll have a look actually. I didn't really do much else to it. I just diffed it.
It worked, so I'm like don't want to change it.
No, well, yeah, adding in a few extra modules will be fine.
The only thing I was wondering about is, should the board be exactly the same drivers on the Pinebook as the Brock Pro, or like what's the difference? Like I couldn't find anything about that.
Don't know.
I'll have to figure that out. But I mean, I assume that their development board has the same stuff as their flagship laptop, so I hope.
The modules is the least thing. That's like something I can do in like a few minutes. Just looking at what the mod probe errors are and then adding them into the kernel config later on. Right, well, thanks for your help, Brent. It was good to work through this stuff. We didn't end up flashing the SPI flash in the end, but there you go. The solution is to simply turn it on without anything attached at all and see the little LEDs light up.
Yeah.
Cheers, Brent.
Goodbye.